let's play Great Ace Attorney. This is V-Diffuser. In our last episode, we started Case 4 with confirmation that Magnus McGilda died in that fire. And we have a new case. We met the fairly rude Tobias Gregson, who had an unlimited supply of fish and chips. And we met our client, the great Japanese author Sosuke Nagase. Sosuke Natsume. Nagase, what am I saying? A very eccentric person. Anyway, we also found out for once, this is not a murder trial. Alright, conundrum. Here we go. What do you mean, Susato-san? What's the conundrum? Well, if what Soseki-san has just told us is true, there's something I can't explain. He says he didn't know the victim, and that there was no one else at the scene. Then he apparently fled without having been seen. I did! But if that's the case, surely this man has to be the culprit. Ah! You! What did you just say? Nothing! I didn't say anything. Oops, perhaps I thought that a little loudly. Actually, that's not what was troubling me. What I was thinking was, how did Soseki-san actually come to be arrested? Sorry, he didn't touch the victim, and there was nobody at the scene to see him. So how did the police ever discover that he was there in the first place? Oh yes, she's right. It was him. That accursed great detective. He led the police to me. Oh, the bad luck. Accursed great detective. Oh, that's Rinosuke. Could it be? I shall never forget that man's name as long as I live. With his haughty laugh and his self-proclaimed greatness. Bash, big-headed, busybody, be gone! May you be cursed till the end of your days, Hairlock Sholmes. Of course. I knew it. Mr. Sholmes? Hairlock Sholmes. Well, I didn't expect to hear that name from this man's lips, that's for sure. It was the morning after that nightmare that unfolded on the pavement before me. I was gnawing on a sliver of hard cheese when some men suddenly burst in through the door. They started shouting at me, "'Tis the police! Put the weapon down!" Yes, it was a thin sliver, and yes, it was hard. But I wasn't eating a weapon. Disgusting. Dietary discrimination. Devils! You clearly had a trying morning yesterday. And there he was, in the middle of all the policemen, grinning like a Cheshire cat. That Hairlock Sholmes. It's actually just Herlock Sholmes. He's English. I've since found out that he's a famous name in detection here in London. Yes, the great detective is really very well known. And his overly sharp mind managed to deduce my whereabouts, apparently. He thinks I'm the knife-wielding madman. Me, this weak, stooped kitten of a man. You like cats a lot. I wonder what great deduction process led him to this confusion this time. You mean to say that Mr. Sholmes' deduction was the only reason the police arrested you? That would be really most unreasonable. Well, the thing is, I was thrown into a panic when they barged their way in. Of course you were. That's only natural. I was terrified and trembling, and they kept throwing question after question at me, in impossible English. Vidish for film flimmery, or flim-flammery. Fiendish for inflammatory. Very godparents. Wait, what? Well, we are in England. You can't really blame them for questioning you in English. Good point, good point. My mind went blank. I knew I had to answer, but I didn't know what to say. So I just kept repeating things like, yes, I do, and I'm fine. The next thing I knew, I was in manacles, and before I knew it, I was thrown in here. Oh dear. I'm afraid that's hardly surprising. I'm fine. He's not fine now, and he's sure as hell not Apollo. Mr. Naruhodo Esquire! Oh, you can just call me Naruhodo. And when we're speaking English, a simple Mr. is more than enough. Oh, yes, alright. Yes, they've really got to me. This country is poisoning my mind! But please, I beg you to defend me in court tomorrow. You can tell them what really happened. You'll do it, won't you? Well, why? Why? Why is it so hard to say yes to me? Well, the thing is, I'm just a student like yourself, on a study tour. A student? I defended a case in the Old Bailey. Only the one, though. But at this moment in time, I really don't know what I'm supposed to believe in. I'm confused about what justice in this country even means. Naruhodo-san, I'm not even the foreign student who was supposed to be here. I'm sort of locum lawyer, I suppose. But an armband! That's the mark of a defense lawyer from our great empire! It's a keepsake from the man who should have been here. He was my best friend. A keepsake? I know exactly what they're saying about me. Oh, who do you mean? The lawyers. All the British defense lawyers. They won't defend me. Goodness! Why do you say that? For the same reason as you noted before, when it happened. There was only the victim and myself around, and I ran away from the scene of the crime. I'm not a fool. I know it looks as though I must be the culprit. It must be very hard for you, Soseki-san. And anyway, I'm a student from overseas. I'm just a foreign nobody to them. Someone not to be trusted. I heard them openly laughing about me before. In my earshot. Without any compunction at all. Any trial for this man would be a waste of time, they said. And, of course, the foreigner did it. They even had the gall to say, the man doesn't understand half of what's being said anyway. That's awful. Damn straight. They're wrong! I've studied more English than half the policemen out there on the streets. I've traveled halfway around the world to learn about these people's country and its great history. But no one here wants to listen to a man with a strange accent. They all hate me. So at the very least, I'd like to entrust my fate to someone who can listen to me in my native tongue. You could do it, couldn't you? When I look into your eyes, I can see it. I can see what you've been through. Soseki-san, it's just that. Give me a little time, please. I'll do what I can, for the time being. What do you mean? We shall investigate the case as thoroughly as possible. If we can find some clues, it will give us a much better chance, I'm sure. Oh yes, yes! Thank you! I'll be here, all alone, waiting for you, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. We should be going then, Naruhodo. We have a case to prepare for. Alrighty. That was quite the demonstration. Alrighty, time to move to Briar Road. Wow, someone's got a dented bicycle. So this is where it happened. Briar Road. Ah, look, Mr. Naruhodo. Look at that regulation metal helmet. It's unmistakable. The men of Scotland Yard are here. They're investigating as we speak. That is their job, you know. But Mr. Naruhodo, to see one with my own eyes. They're often depicted in the adventures of Sherlock Holmes, but I never dreamed I'd actually come this close. To a real Bobby's helmet. What? The helmet? Of course. I have to try one on one day. Well, I hope your hatty dream comes true. Oh, there you are. What's the Japanese delegation doing here? Oh, Inspector Gregson. This isn't on the tourist trail, I'm fairly sure you're well aware. Yes, of course. We're here to investigate. So you've been to the Elden cells then? What are you making a criminal? He's not a criminal as you put it, Inspector. He's a suspect. We'll see about that. You Japanese ought to stick together, I suppose. Well, do you what you will. It don't bother me. The bloke in court is in court tomorrow whenever it happens, and the verdict's a foregone conclusion. Yeah, the stone cold air of rejection. Take heart. London at this time of year is full of stone cold air. That makes it worse somehow. Alright, let's converse. Tell me about Scotland Yard, Inspector. Ever since I read about it in the adventures of Sherlock Holmes, I've been fascinated by the place. The Yard is the most sophisticated policing organization you'll find anywhere in the world, ma'am. For now. Oh, and you know I've always dreamt of wearing a police Bobby's helmet. It does make him look the part. Seeing that policeman there with his helmet on, you certainly get the sense that this is a man who will take no nonsense in his duty of protecting the city. Oh yes, doesn't he look wonderful? Being a London Bobby's hard going, I can tell you. Oh really? This is before labor standards, you know. Excuse me. First thing in the morning, you know what he does? Goes round and rouses all the labourers on his beat so they can get off to work. Well, he wakes people up. Yep, raps on their windows with a long pole. Did myself going and caught back a bit. I had no idea. The Bobby works for the people of the town. It's just another one of his duties. After that, he starts tirelessly patrolling the streets all day long. He has to cover 20 miles a day. That's a regulation distance. Good Lord, 20 miles? I walked, like, I don't know, I walked maybe half that in one day. Yeah, I had to, when I was in college, I had to go to an art shop, which was another city over, so I had to take the train, walk to the art shop, walk back, take the train back, walk back home. A new movie had come out, so I walked over to Walmart and back, and then I had to go to class, so I walked there and back, and I believe that was 10 miles. My feet hated me the next day. Good. Oh, my feet are hating me for just mentioning that. Mind you, this was Florida, so it was entirely flat. I can't really imagine how far that is, but it sounds like a long way. You have no idea, Ryunosuke. Let me see. 20 miles. That's approximately the distance from Tokyo to Yokohama. On foot! That's definitely taking things a step too far. And when it gets dark, of course, he's the important job of lighting all those gas street lamps. Oh my. And I suppose in between all those duties, bobbies are expected to investigate cases as well. And chase after criminals trying to evade the law. I'm not sure you could call it in between exactly. More alongside. But yes. They're expected to handle those jobs as well. We do have men keeling over from time to time, I admit. I'd always dreamt of wearing one of those helmets, as I said. But it's with a heavy heart that I shall have to relinquish that dream to you, Mr. Naruhodo. Your heavy heart will be my heavy head if you do. Alright, the case. It happened all around 5 in the evening 2 days ago, just there on that open bit of pavement. The victim, a young woman, was stabbed with a blade from behind. Is it right that the lady's still unconscious now? You mentioned she's being treated in the hospital. I never said she was a lady. Truth is, unless she comes around pretty smartish, we won't be able to find out much about her at all. I suppose that means they haven't been able to take a statement from her, of course. Here's a map of the local area I happen to have on me. You can take it if you want. Really? Are you sure? It's your policy to give lawyers, defendants, suspects the odd bits of information to go on. I haven't actually accepted a job yet, but still. Thank you, Inspector. You gratefully accept? Alright, local map. Anyway, as far as we know, there was no one else on the scene other than the victim and your fellow countrymen. So who did it, do you think? Not much of a head-scratcher, is it? Well, I know Mr. Natsume is also claiming not to have seen anyone else around, but just because he didn't see anyone doesn't mean we can be sure that nobody else was present. Sorry to have to tell you, but we most certainly can be sure. How? Because, ma'am, the precise moment of the stabbing didn't go unnoticed. What? We have 2 very reliable witnesses, no less. It was a typical foggy London day, and your clone obviously didn't see him. There were witnesses now. Who are these witnesses, Inspector? A fellow and his wife. And the man's one of the most reliable and respected citizens in all of London. He's a copper from Scotland Yard. Oh. A policeman? That might change things. And this policeman just happened to be there at the exact moment the woman was attacked. Not peculiar about that, ma'am. Part and parcel of being a bobby. Catching them and being in the act and all. Or catching them banging the act and all. Do you think it might be possible for us to ask the policeman a few questions? Be my guest. You can ask him what you like. In court tomorrow. Oh. I've no doubt he'll be summoned as a witness. So that'll give you something to look forward to. That's that then. He's got no intention of letting us meet the man beforehand, it seems. A policeman witnessed the incident. As your judicial assistant, I must warn you this could make our job very difficult indeed. As a non-judicial assistant, I could have warned me of that too. Oh yes, one more thing, Inspector. What? The person who led you to the suspect. I hear that was Mr. Sherlock, or Herlock Sholmes. What are you bringing him up for? Was it something I said? The colors drained from his cheeks. Alright, tomorrow's trial, and then Sherlock Holmes. That twitchy Japanese bloke goes on trial tomorrow. Are you going to defend him or not? Well, makes a difference to me, but I will just say this. No London lawyer with his salt would touch that case with a barge pole. Because the prosecution is being handled by the Reaper of the Bailey, you mean? There's no way to save the man now. It's a waste of time trying. It's all a bit strange, though. Sorry. The Reaper. He's appeared in court once for a good few years now. Yeah, we did hear something to that effect. And the only people he usually bothers with are the real scum. The master criminals. The violent ones. Master criminals? The violent ones? That's right. He handpicks his victims, only deals with those guaranteed to go to the gallows for their sins. But Mr. Natsume wouldn't hang for what he's accused of, surely. That's just my point, Sunshine. Yes, the young woman is stabbed, but he didn't kill her. Couldn't even say the intent was there. So this isn't the sort of case I'd be expecting the Reaper to want to sink his teeth into, for want of a better phrase. Well, it's not exactly a minor infraction, is it? No, there's got to be more to it. Some reason he's taken an interest. Really? What sort of reason, Inspector? You think I can tell what's going on inside the head of that Lord of Darkness? You'll have to ask him yourself at tomorrow's trial. Are we really going to have to face the Reaper again? The Lord of Darkness, as he put it? He's no Ozzy Osbourne, that's for sure. Alright, Mr. Shorts. Who did you hear that name from? Oh, well, it was Mr. Natsume who mentioned it. He said Mr. Sholmes was with the police when they entered his lodgings. I'm sure it was the result of one of Mr. Sholmes' inspirational great deductions. Fiddle fellow! Ah! Man's an amateur, and I'm getting sick and tired of him showing his mug everywhere. Oh, I don't know where he gets his information from, but he turns up at the scene of the crime, wanders around spouting incomprehensible rubbish, and before you know it, claims to solve the case. Yes, he's quite astounding, isn't he? He is a great help to Scotland Yard, though, isn't he? Gibble gabble! Ah! Ever seen this before? Yes, that's Rance Magazine. The wonderful publication in which the adventures of Sherlock Holmes appears. Yeah, well, that wonderful publication, as you put it, sees fit to include several of the Yard detectives in its stories. And the so-called great detective makes a mockery of all of us. If you ask anyone at the Yard, it's a misadventure to be included in any Sherlock Holmes tale at all. Well, I suppose there's an element of that. We work our socks off, every one of us, only to be fronted by the public thanks to that obnoxious detective. The man's as dangerous to us at Scotland Yard as he is to all of our criminals. That can't really be true, can it, Inspector? Clearly the great detective and the police have a complex relationship. Well, I don't think we're going to get any more useful information out of the detective. Mr. Naruhodo, can I make a suggestion? Oh, yes, what is it? Well, it seems to me that we must speak with him about this. By him, do you mean Mr. Sholmes? Yes, Mr. Sherlock Holmes, exactly. Look at those shining eyes. You can't wait, can you? Well, Mr. Natsume did blame Mr. Sholmes for all of this, didn't he? Yes, he did. He really did. Which makes him an involved party in the case. Are you just going to ignore that? I hope not. I assure you, it's not simply my selfish desire to meet with Mr. Sholmes again. The trouble is, We've no idea the man's address even. So how? It's Baker Street. Come on. Baker Street is the most famous address in London. 221B Baker Street. In fact, the second most famous street in London is where Sweeney Todd lives. Fleet Street. And it's a good thing we're not going to be running into him in anywhere here. Although seeing Johnny Depp in this game, singing and doing his thing, that would actually be really interesting. I'm surprised they didn't do that. How do you know that? It's in the stories, of course. 221B Baker Street. Most famous address in the world. Oh, I see. Well, there's nothing to stop us from going, I suppose. We better try to find our way there before Susato-san gets any more excited and unpredictable. I have seen the world, beheld its wonders. But there's no place like London. No, there's no place like London. Time to summon a carriage. So we're having a reunion already. You are young. The world has been good to you. You will learn. Gotta have my singing in here somewhere. Alright. Time to move. Sholmes' Street. Oh, we get a video.
Thank you very much. It's just up there overlooking the street. Good day. Thanks again. This is it. The residence of Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
Wow. It's about what you'd expect his place to look like. So this is where the great detective makes his living. It feels surreal to be here somehow. Is it as described in the stories, Miss Susato? Susato-san? Many famous cases have been solved here in this very room. I suppose they must have been, yes. I've never really read the story, so it's hard to get quite excited as she seems to be. The detective chases the villain relentlessly as he disappears into the fog down an unlit London street. Oh, the thrill of it, the romanticism. Can't you feel your heart thumping in your chest? Can't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, I suppose I can, yes. So if you don't mind, I'll just stand here and soak up the atmosphere for a while longer. Please don't mind me. Ha! She's obsessed. Well, it looks like our detective friend isn't home at present. Excuse me, is anybody home? Oh, do we have a visitor? Oh, it's you! Hello. Is it a big new case for Mr. Sholmes? Hello? Wait. Aren't you? Oh, how rude of me. I'll go and make some tea at once. You can't be Mrs. Judson. You're way too young. Judson? Hudson? What the name of his, landlady? I'm sure it's the same girl. Miss Susato, did you see the girl who's just here? Oh yes, isn't it truly extraordinary? To think that the King of Bohemia came to this very room to ask Mr. Sholmes to take on his case. the King of Bavaria? Please don't tell me that Irene Adler is also involved here. King Wilhelm Gottsreich Sigismund von Ornstein, of course. Smo could not be there to comment. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Forget the adventures of Sherlock Holmes for a moment and look over there. Tea's brewed. I'll have a freshly baked cake as well. That's you! I knew it. Susato-san recognizes her as well. There you are. And taking that with you as well. I was looking forward to the trial run of my experimental smoke grenade launcher. Oh, good day to you. I'm, well, the inventor, I suppose, of that machine. It's the girl who turned up at the end of Mr. McGilden's trial in the defendant's antechamber. I've never met a layer from the Far East before. Poor you, having to get straight to work when you've only just arrived in London. Oh yes, it was, challenging. Well, try this tea. It's my special blend, you know. Oh, thank you. Is tea supposed to look that color? No, you're probably used to, green tea, the matcha tea. Oh my, what a fragrant yet mellow flavor. Hooray, it's a winner! I tried blending different leaves designed to alleviate fatigue, you see. You must be exhausted after your long voyage here. And you have another ticklish trial tomorrow. Oh, and you're to defend a Japanese man. I do wish you lots and lots of luck. Did Mr. Sholmes tell you about us, perchance? Oh, you know Hurley, do you? Hurley? Mr. Sholmes to you, surely. Mr. Sholmes was a fellow passenger on the boat that brought us to Great Britain, you see. Was he really? Well, I had no idea. I'm afraid Hurley's out on an errand again today, even though he's just returned from overseas. Wait a minute. We met this girl for the first time yesterday after the trial, and only briefly at that. How on earth does she know so much about us? Did she deduce all those things, do you think? And perhaps more to the point, why is she here in Mr. Sholmes' suite? Oh, silly me. I haven't introduced myself, have I? Curtsy animation. It's a great pleasure to meet you both. My name is Iris Wilson. I live here together with Hurley. Holmes, you have explaining to do. Lots of it. Iris, is it? What a lovely name. What? What's the matter? Wait, this can't be. Wait a minute, Wilson. The guy that was killed in the first trial. Did you say that your name is Wilson? What's the matter with Susato-san? Why is she so flustered all of a sudden? Yes, that's right. And what are your names? I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a lawyer from Japan. Oh, sorry. I'm Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Susato Mikotoba. Wonderful to meet you. Lovely. Susie and Runo. Got it. Susie and Bruno. There's more to this girl than meets the eye. I have so many questions for her, I don't know where to start. So do I. Alright, what can we deduce here? I've investigated thoroughly, but can't find anything out of place. I probably can't investigate anything, can I? Iris. It was you that we ran into yesterday, wasn't it? At the Old Bailey. Yes, that's right. You were ever so helpful. Thank you very much. Oh no, not at all. I'm so sorry we couldn't have been more welcoming. Though at the time, we did have a rather large gun pointed at us. Like this? Thinking back now, you left with Miss Lestrade in tow, didn't you? Oh yes, that awkward witness, Gina Lestrade. Oh, Ginny. Yeah, she's a professional pickpocket. So we found out. It was very naughty of her to pinch my invention like that. Are you referring to that trial-disrupting gun-like contraption? Exactly. So I followed her, you see, to get it back. Perhaps I should think about fitting a self-destruct mechanism in my inventions. This girl is dangerous. Anyway, I brought Ginny back here after that, so she could apologize to my trusty technician. Sorry, your technician? Hurley, of course, silly. Hurley? Yes, Herlock Sholmes. We live here together. I had no idea the great detective has such an interesting young daughter. Daughter? Not likely. What? I wouldn't call him Hurley if it was my father, would I? Sholmes? Well then, what is your relationship with Mr. Sholmes? Well, I expect you found out that lodgings of any kind in London are very expensive. So the solution is to share the cost with a partner, a roommate. Your roommates? I hope you don't mind me asking, Irish, but how old are you? 10 at least, last this year. Well, what of your mother and father? Oh no, they're not around. I see. I wonder what the story is there. Oh yes, there's something I must ask you. Of course. Go ahead, Susie. I'm a very great fan of Adventures of Sherlock Holmes and... Oh, you have a copy of Rance magazine. Yes, I read every issue. It's delivered all the way to Japan on a ship. Oh, this is so exciting. My stories are being read on the other side of the world. My stories? That's right. Hurley's always solving such amazing cases, you see, and he tells me all about them. They really are quite fascinating. It would be such a shame if I was the only one who ever heard of them. Don't you think? Goodness! Last night, he was telling me all about a new case he solved on a steamship traveling from a faraway land. Yeah, we know about that one a little too well, don't we? So I was just in the middle of typing up the manuscript for the next issue before you came. So you're the author? Yes, I'll let you in on a secret if you like. I'm going to call this latest adventure The Speckled Band. That's one of 2 Sherlock Holmes stories I've actually read. The Speckled Band? That's certainly very familiar. Of course, I always change 1 or 2 details in the stories, here and there. This time I had the idea of making a venomous snake be the cause of all the trouble. Oh, that was Mr. Sholmes' first thought as well, actually. Yes, and of course I know that a snake might not be a credible fit for the facts of the case exactly, but it's a story. Some poetic license is justified to make it more thrilling, I think. Don't you? So you mean to say that the stories about Mr. Sholmes that are published in Rance magazine, all written by me? Yes, on my wonderful and very modern typewriter. But all the stories I've ever read are written by a doctor of medicine, Dr. John H. Wilson, who is no longer among the living. Chisato-san's getting more and more worked up. Ah, yes, that's me. I mean, my name really is Wilson. But what about the doctor of medicine part? That's all true too. I am a doctor of How? How? No, at 10 years old? At 10 years old? Well, that's quite incredible. Where is your childhood? But, Dr. Wilson is an English gentleman. Ah, yes. I did alter the setting slightly, for the stories to be more compelling. Oh? Well, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? A great detective with a 10-year-old girl in tow? Shit. Wait a few hundred years. Manga will have you on that one. I suppose it does. Yes. In fact, in one of those manga, the detective will be a 10-year-old. Poor Suzato-san. She looks like her whole world has just fallen apart. Kind of like when I found out J.K. Rowling was a giant jackass. Your deductions just now. About before. Yes, what's on your mind, Bruno? Do tell me. How did you know that I was a lawyer and we just arrived in London, I mean? Yes, oh, and that we have a difficult trial tomorrow. How did you know all of that? Oh, that's what you mean. Please tell us how you did it. Explain every detail. Of course, I'd be delighted, although there's really no mystery. Now, let's begin. There are the goggles. Iris Wilson is proud to present her logic and reasoning is spectacular. First of all, I knew already you were a lawyer, Bruno. After all, I met you yesterday at the Old Bailey in the defendant's antechamber. But you also said we'd only just arrived in London. How did you know that? I observed a passport and travel ticket protruding from your breast pocket. Oh. So I was reasonably confident you have only just arrived in the country. And on top of that, you accepted a case against that particular prosecutor, telling me you were unaware of London's court affairs. The Reaper of the Bailey. I walked right into that one, didn't I? When I noticed a red ink stamp on the back of Susie's hand, you were given that when you visited the local prison to meet with a suspect, weren't you? Earlier today. Ah. They use those stamps to keep a close eye on comings and goings, you see. I didn't realize. And a red stamp is only used for people visiting foreign inmates. So that told me, even though you'd only yesterday concluded the trial of Magnus McGilded, the two of you had already had cause to visit a foreign inmate at a local prison. However, neither of you was wearing a particularly sad expression on your face. So I concluded the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or a relative. That led me to believe that you must have accepted a new case. I see. She is a hell of a lot better at this than Sholmes is. But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It obviously amused him. He told me that he'd caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling. A Japanese man? Well, clearly that must have been Mr. Natsume. Now, Runo has that fancy Japanese sword. And I think your outfit is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me that we both came from Japan yourselves. So I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Hurley caught. And there was only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case. There's a note on the mantelpiece saying the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley's always stabbing his notes with a knife, you know. He is silly. That's understatement of the year. And that's all there was to it, really. Thank you for listening. I'm Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions. Was it a winner? Were my deductions correct? They were spot on. Why aren't you the detective? That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction. You even managed to do the certain something of Mr. Sherlock's delivery. Oh well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. That's really good news. You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris? Please? We will do that next time.